And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another episode of Doing the Work, the first show on the Back Home Network covering IU women's basketball. This is our 174th episode, recorded on Thursday, November 13th, 2025. I'm your host, Jeff Marlow, joined tonight by my co-host, Kathy Amos. And tonight, we will be talking about the two wins by your Hoosiers over UIC, University of Illinois Chicago, 72-56, and over Marshall on Tuesday night, 57-51. And we'll be highlighting our next opponents, Florida State and Butler. But tonight we will start our episode as we do with every episode, the banner moment, the Hoosier Proud banner moment. And Kathy, I'm going to go in the UIC game. Shea Chesky played her 100th collegiate game as an NCAA player. And so that's an interest. And to me, that's always a milestone mark. So that's going to be our Hoosier Proud banner moment tonight is Shea Chesky, her 100th career collegiate game against UIC last week. And our banner moment is brought to you by Home Field Apparel, presenting sponsor of the Back Home Network. Home Field is constantly releasing new schools or updating its products for schools in its existing line. You are bound to find something for you or anyone in your life that just loves great collegiate gear. Not only do you get quality apparel, but you are supporting an Indiana-based business that has its roots in the Kelly School of Business. Go to homefieldapparel.com and use our promo code HOME23, that's HOME23, to get 15% off your entire first order. That's promo code HOME23 for 15% off. Once again, the website is homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. And in news around the program, several things here, actually, and Kathy, I didn't have a chance to get this added to the run sheet, but a couple things. Shea Chesky was the Big Ten Player of the Week for last week after her outstanding play, especially against UIC. IU's 2026 recruiting class is currently ranked number 6 nationally, and then also some Hoosier alumni around the world. I found out, Kathy, Amanda Cahill has retired from professional basketball, and she's actually has gotten married or is getting married. Grace Berger was supposed to play down in Australia this winter, but she is setting out the season. An unspecified injury, just says that by mutual agreement, they canceled the contract because she picked up an injury at the end of the WNBA season with the Dallas Wings. And then Alexa Golbe and Sarah Scalia are both playing with a team in Lyon playing in the French League. So I wanted to pass that along about our alumni, and then we'll throw it over to Kathy for the Amos angle.
Sure. Are they on the same team over in France?
Yes.
I know they were at one point. Is it again? Okay, great.
Yep.
Cool. Well, that's awesome, Jeff. Thanks for adding that in. I appreciate you being able to keep up on our IU women alumni basketball players and seeing how they're proceeding with their professional careers. So yeah, that's super exciting to hear that for Alexa. Oh my gosh, my brain blanked. Who did you say she's playing with? I can see her in my brain. Sarah Scalia. Yes, that's been my day today. So apologies if my words don't necessarily flow out wonderfully tonight. But yeah, so the women are 3-0, and we'll break it down here and talk a little bit more in detail of each game. I definitely would say there's, as we expected, growing pains with this team that we're seeing. But the important thing here is that they ended up winning both of those games and ended up where they needed on the right side of it. So I'm sure we'll get into it. But I especially in the first half of both games, I thought they came out a little slow and a little sloppy, especially in the game against Marshall, which never got cleaned up. So I think we're seeing some themes that maybe we'll need to start putting a pin in and see if that continues throughout the year. But again, 3 games into the season, super, super young team, almost all of them brand new playing together. So you expect to be some hiccups along the line. And we're definitely seeing that, but we came out 3-0. So good for them.
And yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the UIC game. And came out with the same starting 5 that we saw in the Lipscomb game. As we mentioned already, Shea Chesky's 100th collegiate game. And so that's starting 5 of Beaumont, Chesky, Kadlikova, Caffey, and Big Z. And then primarily off the bench, Phoenix Stotine and Maya Makaluski with that lineup. And that's one thing, Kathy, I guess I want to kind of hit on here in terms of this UIC game. Really only played 7 players in that game with Odessa Noyan getting 7 minutes, but really only 7 players got double digits. I think that was a little bit surprising for me that we weren't getting deeper into the rotation and trying to build some depth here early in the season with so many new pieces anyway.
Yeah, absolutely, Jeff. I think that's one of the themes that, we can start talking about already. We were really hopeful, I think, coming into this season that we would see, especially in these early games, being able to get run out of some of our bench players. And Faith Wiseman now, I think, has played a total of 4 minutes. I think she played 4 minutes in the first game and hasn't played at all in the last 2. And that's just one example. But her in particular, I really thought we'd see a lot more out of. And, we had a fairly nice lead with UIC. After that third quarter, when we were, outscored them by 10 in that third quarter. So I really thought in the fourth quarter, we'd come out with more bench players than we did. So I find it kind of unfortunate that we're, continuing to see the same patterns that we did historically, where we have a pretty short, bench and short rotation. And then on top of it, the bench players coming in, I don't think we're getting a whole lot of production out of them on top of it. So not only are we not going deep into the bench, we're not getting a whole lot from the players that we are playing in these games.
And you mentioned and I want to kind of lead you into this. I'll let you kind of take the first half a little bit and as well as the second half, but you look at the second half, especially, and I know Shea accounts for a lot of this. I think we're going to talk quite a bit about Shea in this game when we get to the awards part of it, but they were 18 for 28 from the field in the second half, including 7 of 11 from beyond the arc. Now, when you're making shots, it looks a whole lot better. But give us your thoughts about kind of, especially the first half, and then maybe even if we want to go ahead and lead us into the second half.
Yeah, for sure. So some of the notes I took, it took us 7.5 minutes left in the first half, not the first quarter, first half, before we finally made our first 3. Caffey seemed to be really pushing it. I kind of felt like that in both games, actually, but definitely in this first half. She seemed to calm down in the second. But we ended up down in that first half by 7. We had shot 31% from the field, only 2 of 11 3-point shooting, and we just seemed really frazzled again with how fast UIC was playing. And with their pressure. And we had 2 of our starters with no score whatsoever in the first half, Caffey and Batalysova. And then Lene Beaumont only had 4 at half. And so you were really relying again here on Chusky and Big Z to carry the load in that first half. And you have one night where Shea Chusky is off in particular. We'll talk about her a lot in these 2 games, but you have one game where she's off. And we saw that, as you mentioned in our preview last year, where sometimes she just kind of disappeared on a. We can have that from Shea Chusky this year with the way we're kind of seeing played out. Again, early, we get all that, but you would think against some of these, opponents, especially like a UIC, we would be getting more production out of, especially our starters, and be able to go into our bench more. So that was kind of the kind of things I saw in the first half. Led me into the second half. I thought they calmed down. They definitely made some nice adjustments at half and were playing much better under control, and their defense kind of ratcheted up. And of course, Shea Chusky, just as you mentioned, the numbers, those are almost all her 3-pointers. She just caught fire in that game, that second half, and really said, I felt like she came out of the half and was like, you know what, we're not going to go down to UIC. Come on, girls, let's go, and put the team on her back. So just super impressed at the turnaround in this game from the first half to the second.
Well, yeah, I mean, you really look at the second half. That's a 23-point swing. They were down 7 at the half. They win by 16, so that's a 23-point swing. And I think one thing I want to get in here on my terms of thinking about the recap, and again, I know it's early. She's still kind of maybe getting back her feet under, but Lene has to give us more than 4 points.
Yeah.
Now, credit to Lene, and I'm not trying to do numbers here, but at least credit to Lene. She had 9 rebounds and 5 assists. Mm-hmm. But she's got to get us more than 4 points. She's got to find a way to cut down some of her turnovers, and I'm going to come back to that in the next game. Yeah. But Lene to me is really kind of the key. Shea's not going to go off for 35 every game, and I'm not sure Big Z can get you 30 in a game. So that's why I think Lene is such a key, because right now McAlusky's struggling in terms of scoring. I think she's playing well I think she's doing other things on the floor. I'm still really trying to find her way a little bit, but there's just right now, if Lene's not scoring to give them that third scorer, Kadlikova's not doing it. you can't rely on Caffey to be that freshman to do it. And so to me, as I watch the game and look at the numbers coming out of this first game, to me, I kind of get your thought about this. Right now, you feel like you got two solid players. And again, I think Lene is going to be there, but we definitely need somebody to be that third double-digit scorer right now. And when Lene's not doing it, I don't know who is.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jeff. I think Lene's going to have to be the one to step up for us offensive production wise. Nevaeh Caffey, I have to say hats off to her because she was on Carruthers for UIC, which was their leading scorer coming into this game again early on, but she was the leading scorer in all of NAIA at the school she was at prior. And I forgot to write down which school it was, but she was all of NAIA's leading scorer last year. So, this girl can put up points, and Caffey came out and held her, pretty much shut her down. I think in the second half, she ended up with only 3 points, and that was after she had 14 in the first half. And so I have to say their defensive adjustment was very promising in the second half as well. But in terms of offense, yeah, they have to find something to figure out their shooting woes in particular, because we've now seen this through all 3 games where the shooting just hasn't been really stellar other than, Shea coming alive in the second half. So, 2 of 11 for 3-point land in that first half was not good, but it ended up really nice at the end. But yeah.
And by the way, I mentioned this last week. Carruthers, a Crown Point kid, had originally started at Butler. She was at IUN, Indiana University Northwest, last year up in Gary, playing out of there, being the Lake County kid, and now she's finishing up. I'm assuming this should be her last year of eligibility and finishing up at UIC here with that. So other than that, Kathy, anything else you want to hit on here as far as a recap for the UIC game?
No, again, just to kind of put a pin in it, and in terms of their defense and how they turned around, they did end up holding UIC to only 6 field goals total in the entire second half. So we know that defense is there. Again, it was UIC. I get all of that, et cetera, but we know that they're definitely capable of this. So I think it's just a matter of them trying to figure out how to start gelling from the very beginning so that they don't have these struggles in the first half. But no, nothing in particular else for that game.
So, Kathy, since we're doing this kind of new format and the first time we've had multiple games, do you want to talk numbers here and stay kind of the UIC? Okay.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. That's a great idea.
So why don't you take the first number you want to talk about?
Sure. I think, the shooting again is where I keep coming back to. So 9 of 22 from 3, which ended up at 40.9%. So that tells you how big of a second half we had. The problem is that you had several players going 0 for. So you had Lene Beaumont going 0 for 3. Even Vadalasova only went 1 for 4. Phoenix Stonetine 0 for 1. And Maya Makaleski only went 0 for 2. So it looks nice. 9 for 22 is okay at 40%, but that was because of Shea Chusky hitting 7 of 10. So, once you start digging into those numbers, it does make you a little concerned about how much we're putting on there. And then also just to point out too, I'm a little starting to get concerned about Shea's minutes. She played 37 minutes in that game as well.
I'm going to go free throws here. We were 7 of 9, 78% of the line, which I love the percentage.
Yep.
But we got to get there more than 9 times. We got to get more than 9 free throws against UIC. And again, I didn't get to see much of the game, so I'm a little bit, hesitant to really kind of rip on too much here in this game. But that, to me, to a certain degree, I just feel like that shows we're not as aggressive as I would like for us to be, because we're not trying to get to the rim. We're not trying to attack. But again, 22 threes, as you mentioned, I can live with that number, but especially like you said, Shea, kind of bailed us out. The other number I wanted to point out here in this was 15 assists on 28 makes. So they did move the ball a little bit, not quite the assist rate that we were used to seeing in the last, couple of years ago. But I think that number was better than a lot of the games we saw last year. And that was the other thing I wanted to kind of bring up here. I should put this in the recap. Didn't you get the feeling that this was a game where last year we would have felt like it would have been a lot closer at the end, or maybe even lost because we got behind early and just really didn't seem to have any energy at the beginning? At least I felt better about this team coming back from a 7-point deficit to half.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Jeff. And I kind of felt the same way about Marshall as well, that this team doesn't look like, a lot of the times, I think you're right, last year, they kind of look like they gave up I don't feel like we're going to get that from this team again. I don't think that a lot of the, kind of blemishes that we're seeing in these games are because of lack of hustle or lack of cohesion or anything like that. Well, maybe a little lack of cohesion in terms of playing. I don't think as a team, I feel like that. I think they really got each other's backs. I think it's taking some time for them to gel, which we expected again. And I think there's a lot of, young players still trying to figure out, like Nevaeh Caffey, when she could drive and when she can. I think there was times that, like I mentioned, the first half, she was kind of pressing and trying too hard to get to the basket and make her own shot instead of taking what was coming to her. She looked a lot better and calmed down in the second half. So I think that's what we're seeing here compared to where last year we had more experienced players. They just didn't seem to know once they got behind how they wanted to come back, and they just kind of gave up on us at times.
So I don't really have any other numbers from the game because a lot of the numbers are going to be about individuals, and so I think we got to save those for our awards.
Yep. Do you want to do awards for this game, or do you want to?
Yeah. No, let's do the awards for the UIC game, and I'll shoot it over to you and let you go first. I think we're going to be in unanimous agreement here on the game ball here.
Yeah, this one's a super, super easy one, obviously, for me. Yeah, sorry.
I don't want to interrupt you, Kathy, but I'm just going to go out on the limb here and say I totally agree with Kathy, and that'll be what Kathy cites as our game ball winner.
That's right. This will be super easy. Shea Chesky, career high of 35 points. Again, she completely took that team on her back in that second half. 7-10 from the 3-point line, 4-4 from free throw line. She had also contributed 4 rebounds and 2 assists. Only had 1 turnover in that game. I honestly, I don't know that you could ask for a whole lot more from Shea Chesky. And by the way, she also included 2 steals, which was a team high with only 3 steals total for the team. She had
and a block.
And a block. That's right. Yeah. Which you would never expect from Shea with her size and the position at a guard that she plays. So I don't know that you could ever ask for anything more from Shea on this game in terms of what we got from her, especially in that second half.
So I unanimous agreement. So Shea Chesky wins the game ball here for the UIC game. I'm going to go next here on the Hustle Award. And I think you probably may be in agreement. I don't want to get too far out on my skis here on this one, but I'm going to go Big Z here. She scored 19 points. She had a double-double, 19 points, 13 rebounds. She had an assist, and so shot 8 for 13 and was 3 of 3 at the line. So I'm going to go with Big Z here for the Hustle Award. Or the the Grace Berger hardest worker award.
Yes, I knew what you meant. I was thinking hustle in my head too, even though right on our own screen it says hardest worker. But yeah, I totally agree with that. Easy for me as well. She had a double-double, her first collegiate career double-double. She came really close in our first game as well against Lipscomb, but she didn't quite get there with the rebounds. But 13 rebounds. She played 33 minutes again, for your starting 5 and playing 33 minutes again early into her college career, because she didn't play a whole lot at UCLA last year. So to go from somebody that was a very much probably end of game player at UCLA to now starting at a Big Ten school, her production has just been impressive, and I've been impressed with her all around. Let's not forget she also went 3 for 3 from the line, which is always nice to see. So yeah, definitely easy. Make it unanimous on that guy too.
All right, so let's go back now. We'll do the recap for the Marshall game that was Tuesday night, and that was a game that I got one word for my recap: turnovers. Back to what we just said a minute ago. They turned it over 28 times against Marshall on Tuesday night. Had they done that last year, we would be talking about an L. I'm not happy about 28 turnovers, and they've got to clean it up.
Harvard last year, right?
And they found a way. They got a win. They got out of there with a win. And it may not have been pretty. It may not look good come tournament time when you're trying to do resume stuff, but it's still going to be a W, but that may not be the best W. But they've got to clean up the turnovers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was the name of the game again here. And, from the beginning until the end, I felt like they were struggling with turnovers, and especially with that press. And this has become a theme of Coach Morin's teams. And I'm not quite sure what's going on, why this coaching staff just can't seem to get a good, press breaker. Because I remember even going down to the Fort Myers game a couple years ago over Thanksgiving and watching them struggle with the press in the first half. I think the difference with some of those games is that they were able to figure them out in the second half. I remember them figuring out against Ohio State. So it's definitely capable. It just seemed like whatever the coaching staff put into place to break the press, this team just either wasn't quite executing or it just wasn't working. Because boy, there were so many turnovers against that press, and some of them just errant passes and things that not necessarily even forced by the press. But I think that being sped up and being pressed like that really got them out of sorts. There were a number of times they barely got across that half court without getting a 10-second violation on them. So, this is the easiest theme of this game. If they don't have those 28 turnovers, which I know we're not talking numbers real quick, but I can't remember what it was, but points off of turnovers was 22 alone for Marshall. That's almost half their points. You cut down those even in half, which is still a crazy number of 14 for this team is a lot. Jeff, the 28 turnovers was more than their first two games combined. Right. I think they had 10 and 18 in their first two games. So they had 18, I think, total. I looked it up. Yep. And now they had 28. They almost doubled in one game what they had in two. And so clearly whatever Marshall was doing was working to disrupt him, and Marshall really made him pay. But luckily we were able to get some other things going. It wasn't a pretty game, but by any stretch of the imagination, but they managed again to get that win, which I think is important.
And I think the thing that concerns me there, Kathy, is you look at, I'm trying to do the math real quick here in my head, 12, 18, 22 of those 28 turnovers were by people who should be ball handlers. Shea had 5, Lene had 7. And again, I love Lene, but she can't turn it over 7 times. Nevaeh had 6. And Phoenix had 4. Those are all should be primary ball handlers that you should be able to trust with the ball. And so 22 of your 28 from those 4 is at least in that game, that's alarming. Now, I'd like to think they're not going to turn it over those 4 together 22 times a game. If they are, we're not going to win very many. But that concerned me, that primary ball handlers. And I didn't think Marshall really did that much to really force turnovers. I didn't think they were. It was like they were a huge pressing team.
Mm-mm. Yeah, they did press, but it wasn't like an Ohio State kind of press or anything like that. And that was definitely their mantra was press after every make and whatever. And of course, again, our shooting woes were there for us, and so they had a lot of opportunities to be able to press us as well. And so low scoring game, you're not expecting that out of a Indiana women's basketball team here under Coach Morin, but they grinded it out. And I think I said to my husband, it kind of reminded me a little bit of the Oregon game, and this time we ended up on the right side of it. So it's a good, important lesson. And that's where I kind of landed with myself on both of these games. Neither game, in my opinion, was a very pretty game. But I think that they came out on the right side of it. They got the W's, and I think there's really good things to put on tape and lessons to learn. I will echo what you're saying. I absolutely would love to see, at least here in this game, Lene did put up 10 points. But gosh, the turnovers are concerning to have 7 from, somebody who's supposed to be the senior leader, not seniors in grade, but like one of your leaders on the team.
Right.
I do have to give props to Lene, though. If you watch the game, things that do not show up in the scorebook matter a lot. And the thing I see with Lene is she is constantly talking, whether it's during play, on defense, on offense, and talking to the other players. And so that's what I think we were expecting from her. She has been that vocal leader in all of the games. And if you really watch that in the next game here coming up this weekend, I think that's something that will jump out. At least it does for me from Lene. So she may not be putting up quite yet the numbers we have, but I think she's probably still shaking off some of that rust from being out for a year and change from her injury.
Yeah. I would agree with that. So anything else you want to go through on the recap?
I don't think so. I think this game, in terms of just some other players we might not be mentioning later, I think Valentina Catalasova, I thought this was a good game from her. I still think, again, and I can say this with almost anyone, I would like to see some of her threes drop a little bit more, but her shot looks okay. And she ended up with 2 for 6, and she had a really nice big one to take that lead back to double digits in the second half. So I do want to call out some props for her. She ended up with almost double-digit points at 9 points. So, and she was one of the few players that played significant minutes at 27 and had no turnovers. So I do at least want to call out her for some of the things that she did. Because again, like she was a very much minor role player last year, and now all of a sudden in a starting role. I feel like we might see a little bit more from her as the year grows for her and she continues to get into, the feel of the game. So that's what I'm hopeful for, at least with her.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
They at least had 3 double-digit scores. I'm going to go first here with the notable number here, and I already said the one notable number, which is the 28 turnovers. Here now, back to Kathy's point in the last game, 3-point shooting. They were 3 for 14 against Marshall on Tuesday night, 21% from the field or from the arc, from beyond the arc, and 0 for 5 in the first quarter, 0 for 2 in the third quarter. All right. So it was not a good night shooting. In fact, Valentina had 2 and Kathy made 1, but this was a night where, ironically, Shea Chesky shot no threes.
None.
Shot no threes and such. So, but that's, so that's the first notable number I'll go with.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jeff. I was going to go there if you didn't. So perfect. I think the other one for me is, kind of something we've already been touching on, and that's just with the number of minutes that some of our starters are starting to get. Shea Chesky ended up playing 100% of the game this time at 40 minutes. And then Nevaeh Caffey and Lene Beaumont with both over 30. We did get 3 players in off our bench in double-digit minutes, and I think the only reason we got that, though, with Odessa Noyan coming in to spell Big Z is because Big Z had 2 fouls early on into the first quarter, and so they sat her. Otherwise, I don't think we would have seen Noyan getting that many minutes again. And so, again, I think that's, to me, is really concerning of how little bench player we're getting and very little production, although we did get at least 8 points from them in this game, which was more than we did in the UIC game. So those are some of the numbers just to kind of point out, the minutes for our starters and some of the bench play that we're getting in production or lack thereof.
Yeah, when it comes to defensive side of it, I always want to be like, did we force teams to shoot it bad, or were teams just not hitting shots, or is it a combination of the two? But the other number I want to cite here is defensive field 3-point percentage. We held them to 18% from 3. Marshall only shot 4 for 22 from deep. Yeah. So while we weren't shooting it very well, we were holding them to a worse percentage.
Yeah, that's a great point out. So. Well, that's all I had in terms of numbers, Jeff. We've kind of already talked about it. The big name here was turnovers of this game.
Yeah, I will say, I did want to point, I thought maybe you might go here, out rebounded them by plus 16, 46 to 30 on the glass, but that also could have been a byproduct of us missing a lot of shots as well.
Yes.
But honestly though, take
both
that
of them.
But the flip side though is the amount of turnovers we had lowers the number of actual shot attempts because you're not getting, so that's with that. So let's head to the game ball here, Kathy, and I'll let you go first.
Yeah, this one I was a little torn on here. I think you could have gone between 2 players personally. Again, you know what? I'm going to go ahead with Shea Chesky on this one. Again, Shea Chesky got her first career double-double with 13 points and 10 rebounds. I was hesitant with her, but she had 5 turnovers, but it was kind of hard to use turnovers as a disruling factor because then you would have hardly anybody with a game ball. But, as you and I had texted about it and you had a great point. I was surprised this was her first double-double, but you also mentioned, hey, it's really hard for guards, especially to get there when, when it's on rebounds. And that's a great point. And so and she played the whole game again. And early on and contributed again a team high 3 steals. So for me, I finally landed on Shea Chesky for my game ball.
Yeah, I was going to go with Shea here as well, just because also she had 3 steals. She had 1 more turnover than Big Z, but she had 2 more steals. She scored the same points, had the same number of rebounds. Actually got to the free throw line more often than Big Z and was 5 for 6. But I just felt like that those steals kind of put her over the top. So I'm in agreement with you, Shea Chesky, for our game ball. That makes her now the leader in the clubhouse here with 2 game balls early, Big Z with 1. And so let's go back to you, Kathy, for the Grace Berger hardest worker.
Yeah, this one I really struggled on. I really wanted to give it to Lene, but I thought that so many of those turnovers, again, there were a lot of turnovers. And again, I'm not trying to use it as disqualifier, but I finally landed on Big Z. I thought the one thing with her is that she did get into a little bit of foul trouble in that first half. But when she was in there in the second half in particular, I thought she really impacted the game with what we could do with her in terms of both rebounding. And she ended up again with another double-double. And like you mentioned, she was also 1 of 2 from the line and then shooting the ball really great. She was 6 of 7 from the field. And contributed 1 steal as well. So I landed on Big Z, but I could understand going with Lene here as well. But that's kind of where I landed finally.
Yeah, and I'm going to go with Lene here because she did have 4 assists. Now she had the 7 turnovers, and I already talked about that. She can't happen for her, but she did contribute 4 assists. As you mentioned, she was doing some other things that don't show up on the stat sheet, and she also had 6 rebounds. I mean, so she was not that far away from a double-double. She had 10 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. So if you can take away, I should say take away, if you're willing to kind of figure that 7 turnovers kind of counterbalanced by the assists, I'm going to go with Lene here for the hardest worker. So let's just go ahead and split that tonight between Lene and Big Z.
I was split on it anyway, and we have a vote for Lene in our chat anyway. And so since I was split in my own head, we're going to give it to Lene. And so
give it to Lene.
Grace Berger, hardest worker. So yeah, we're pretty evenly split now. We got 3 different players without award this year already.
The way we love it. Hey, real quick, let's go around this kind of some big games in the Big Ten here. USC with kind of a nice win for them, beating, in the league. They beat number 9 North Carolina State 69-68. I didn't get to see that game, but I got a feeling that was a real barn burner.
It really was. Yeah, USC was down into the fourth quarter and really just came back. Their freshman Jazzy she is going to be a fun person to watch. Definitely keep an eye on her on USC. I did get to watch that game. It was a lot of fun.
Number 3 UCLA with a nice win over a number 6 Oklahoma team, 73-59. So that I didn't see any of that game, but that's a nice matchup, and those are good for the league. That's only going to help the league when it comes time. At least it should when it comes time for seeding and starting to look at strength of schedule and things like that. UCLA plays number 11 North Carolina. Actually, that game is tonight, coming up here at 8:00 Central, 9:00 Eastern. So that game in about 20 minutes. I don't know if that's on TV, but it's got to be on somewhere. Whether it's
on
ESPN
2.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Michigan, number 14 Michigan against number 18 Notre Dame. That game Saturday at 4 Eastern, 3 Central. USC, and we talked about this in the preview for them a little bit. They were the one team in the league that really wasn't shying away because they thought they were going to have Juju too. Yes. Number 8 USC against number 2 South Carolina, and the battle for the real SC is, I think Kathy put that in the run sheet. Saturday at 9 Eastern. I've heard it billed
as that, yeah.
Okay.
I'm just repeating what I heard, so I'm not taking credit for it.
9 Eastern, 8 Central on that game on Saturday. And then Sunday at noon Eastern, 11 Central, Ohio State will battle number 1 UConn. So those are some things to watch here around the Big Ten for the weekend as well. And I'm going to throw it over to Kathy real quick. Well, actually, Kathy, anything you want to comment else on those games? And I'll throw it to you for Florida State.
I was the same as you. I didn't get to see the UCLA Oklahoma game. It was on too late for me on a school night, but I did get to see that USC North Carolina State game on Sunday, and it was a real battle. And as you can see, it really propped USC up. I think they're to number 8 in the polls now. So they were 18 before that. So that really great for that. USC definitely not shying away. And I think even after this game with South Carolina, they have on Saturday, I think next week they play another top 10 team. I just can't remember who it is off the top of my head. So
at some point they got UConn.
That's it. Yeah. And I think that's next week. And so, I know Ohio State right now is expected to be down but I still put that on here because I think this is going to be an interesting test for Ohio State. And we might get a real feel for how down they may or may not be coming up against the UConn on Sunday. So that's why I kind of put that one in there too.
So Kathy, I'm going to let you kind of take the lead here on the Florida State game and talk about our opponent. But I think this is really going to be our first, we're really going to find out something about this team on Sunday.
That's right. So we're going to be talking about two games here. Like Jeff mentioned, I'm going to take the Florida State. That is at Florida State in Tallahassee. That game is this coming Sunday on November 16th. It will tip off at 5 Eastern, 4 Central. It will be on ACC Network. So if you are a YouTube TV person, you will need to find an alternative way to try to watch it, or you'll have to stream it on radio. I have found an alternative way for myself. Shout out to my mom. Thanks to my mom. So I just want to thank her for that. But it is that ACC Network is part of the ESPN suite that is currently not on YouTube TV. But anyway, Florida State right now has played 4 games. They are 3-1. They have beat Florida A&M, Georgia Southern, and recently Nichols, and they lost to UConn earlier this year, already 67-99. So UConn is really making the rounds, but Florida State is led right now by Sol Williams in scoring at 17.5 points per game, but they do have 2 other players in their 4 games that has averaged double digits. And then in terms of rebounding, Tatum Green is leading the team right now with 7.3. And interesting thing, she came off the bench in the first 3 games and was leading them with rebounding and was right up there in scoring. But she did end up starting in the Nichols game that they just had, I believe, yesterday. So she is kind of taking that. So the 2 people are the person in particular in terms of scoring is Sol Williams that want to keep an eye on for her.
And I like this game. I like the idea of going out on the road and playing a true road game against it in what's been a pretty traditionally strong ACC program. So I like this game here. And like I said, I think we're going to find out quite a bit about this group of Hoosiers come Sunday. So the other game we'll be talking about is next Wednesday. Actually, we're actually going to go live after that game finishes. Right now, that's our plan, is to go live after the Butler game on Wednesday night. That is at 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 Central, and that's on BTN Plus next Wednesday. Butler's 1-2 with an overtime loss to Columbia, 74-69, and they lost to Central Michigan, 68-59. They also do play Sunday versus Northern Kentucky. They're being led by Lily Zeenstra with 14.3 points per game, and Nevaeh Jackson comes off the bench and gets them 10.3. And then Sania Jackson averages 5 rebounds a game, as well as Jackson, who averages 4.7 rebounds a game. To me, this is a little bit, if I'm IU, you may not be talking about it among the team proper, but if I'm Shea Chesky, if I'm Lene Beaumont, Kadlikova, this is a grudge game. This is a game you cannot lose at home. You went up to Indianapolis last year, looked awful, bit you in the butt, you lost. You have to beat Butler home. I don't care what happens on Sunday against Florida State. You have to win on Wednesday against Butler.
Yeah, I'm of the same feeling. I think when we did our preview, I picked us to lose the Florida State game. So, what I want to see from them, hopefully in both of these games, to be quite honest, is for them to come out a little bit more crisp in that first half. I think all 3 games they've come out, not quite playing maybe their game plan. I'm definitely not hitting their shots like we know they can. I mean, we saw Shea Chesky put up 7 for 10, 7 for 10. I shut my screen already. We can't have another game from Shea though, even though she, was our, tied for points leader in the Marshall game. She has to put up some threes. So I was surprised when I saw she didn't put up any. So that's what I'm hopeful for anyway, is again, just to come out a little bit more crisp, ready to go. Because especially against, like, now we're starting to ramp up the opponents here, at least definitely with Florida State. If you keep having a slow start like they've had the first 3 games, I think we're going to be in some trouble here come Big Ten, where we're going to be down 20 or in a hole that we just can't come back from when we get into Big Ten play. But you still have time to fix those, and these are 2 great opponents to start working on that with. So, but I agree, grudge match for sure with Butler.
Or would you like to just talk about give us your final thoughts?
Sure. We'll go right into final thoughts. So again, kind of just to piggyback off what I was just saying, I think, growing pains, that's the name of the season. I think that we're going to see from them all year. I do not think that the team you're seeing now in November is going to be the team that you see playing in hopefully in February. I really can see flashes with a lot of these players. I can understand why Coach Morin and the staff were high on some of these players in terms of athletic ability and other things we heard that they wanted to increase. Like, for example, Nevaeh Caffey. I'm really excited I knew a lot of people were with her coming in, but I never got to see her play until the last 3 games. I'm very excited for her. I think she's got a lot of potential there. It's just a matter at this point of them putting it all together. So I think it'll continue to improve as we go. It's just going to be sometimes feeling a little hard for us to watch and for them to get through as they get through those growing pains.
Yeah, my final thoughts here tonight are just simply 3-0 is better than 2-1. That they very easily, with the number of turnovers they had against Marshall, that could have gotten away from them. They did. Absolutely. They at least found a way to get the win. And so I my final thought here is right now, just kind of keep winning, building confidence. But I do want to see us build more depth. I want us to be more than 8 deep because I feel like, when it comes to Big Ten season, we're going to condense that down to more like 6 or maybe 6.5. And I just would right now against Florida State, against Butler, I want to see us play 9, 10 kids and get them like at least minimum 7 minutes, 7, 8 minutes. And let's build some depth and not feel like we have to in the second and third game of the year play our starting 5, 37, 40 minutes, whatever it may be. As we pointed out, Lennay's played 30 minutes, I don't remember exactly in the Lipscomb game, but Lennay played 33 against UIC. She played 33 against Marshall. So I really don't want Lennay playing 33 minutes the third game of the year. I'd like to see us build some depth with that. And I also think that raises some questions about some of these people, like you talked about Faith Wiseman, and I think it raises some questions about Chloe Spring. It was like, where's their role and what were they brought in to do if they're not getting any minutes or very limited minutes. So again, I want to see us build that depth. Those are my final thoughts for the night.
I agree. Both for this year and for next year.
Yes.
Hopefully. So I 100% agree. That's a great point to end on. And with that, I'll get us some music going.
All right, coming up next, we will be returning on Wednesday, November 19th. As I mentioned earlier, we'll be following live the Butler game, and we'll cover the Butler game and the Florida State game on Wednesday night. If you want to see us do the show live and be a part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@ Back Home Network, youtube.com/@Back Home Network. You can also be a part of our private community. Find out more at assemblycall.substack.com. Special thanks to John Ringer of rigdesign.com for designing our logos. Also, a big thank you to Bob Thompson for the music you heard throughout the broadcast. I want to thank Kathy for being along with me again tonight as my co-host. And thank you all for listening. We'll be back to talk about IU hoops again with you on Wednesday. Until then, keep your elbow in, your eyes on the rim, and let's go Hoosiers.
All right. And that's a wrap. Good job.
Hey, I didn't want to put this in the news, and I didn't want to bring it up in the middle of the show. So if anybody's still listening at this point or watching, had somebody, a friend of mine, ask me, what are our transfers out doing? So I did look it up yesterday and today. Yeah. Lily has started all 3 games at Kansas. She's averaging right around 7 points a game and 6, 7, like maybe 5, 6 rebounds. But again, she started and playing over half the game. Jules Lamondola is starting at Grand Canyon. She's averaging right around 7 points a game and about 4 rebounds a game. But I think the two they were really kind of surprising. Lexi Bargesser is averaging 19 points a game through the first 2 games at Colorado State. And then the other one was kind of the other way. Yarden in the first 3 games has struggled. She's averaging about 8 points a game. Now I know there's more talent around her, but her shooting percentages are way down. And she's she's below 30% on 3 and her overall shooting percentage. So you're interested to see how that dynamic plays out for those kids as their seasons progress.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for that update. Yeah, I had seen a couple of the Maryland box scores. Maryland's without one of their starters right now, though. So I'm curious if that's impacting anything, but I don't know why that would impact her 3-point shot for Yarden, but I am casting out. I can't remember her name. But yeah, one of their expected starters, returning players for Maryland is out right now. So just something to keep in mind. It might change some of the dynamics there. But I was surprised to see how poor Yarden has been shooting in their first 2-3 games. So, but good for Lexi. That's good. I hope that means you found a nice home for herself there. So awesome. Thanks for looking that up.
Well, somebody had asked me, and I was kind of like,
Yeah.
well, let's go look. And I didn't look up all the transfers out, but those were kind of the four that we probably, three of them, I don't think any of us were shocked on. Obviously we talk about Yarden was kind of a shocker, but anyway. So Kathy, I don't really have anything else to add except let's go football on Saturday and pick up another win. And
more basketball on Sunday, football on Saturday. It's a good weekend. It's a good weekend.
And I think the men play again sometime this weekend. The men play again.
I thought they both play Sunday. Let me.
Is it both Sunday?
I feel like so. I have it here real quick.
I know this is not a simply call, but I got
Sunday. Oh, almost at the exact same time. The women tip off at 5 Eastern, and the men tip off at 5:30 Eastern. So neat.
I gotta admit, I'm enjoying watching the men play right now.
Yes. Yes.
And not so much. And again, that's not a knock on the women. I have enjoyed watching the women's first couple of games. I want them to play better, but I have enjoyed. I have enjoyed what I've seen from them. So it's not a knock on the women. But
it's just a breath of fresh air on the men's side. It's a breath of fresh air on the men's side after 8 years plus in the doldrums. So no, I feel you. Yeah, it's a good sports weekend coming up. So
all right,
sir.
Hey, yep.
Have yourself a good night. Good night, everyone else. Take care.
See ya.